The story so far in House of the Dragon has been progressing slowly and quite underwhelmingly. There have been so many changes made to the narrative that have lessened the impact of many important events, whether those moments be how Blood and Cheese unfolded in episode 1, or how Helaena has reacted to that event since it happened. In Fire and Blood, it's said that Helaena was grief-stricken after what happened with Blood and Cheese, and that she would no longer eat, nor bathe, nor leave her chambers. In the book, this is tragic because Helaena had been described as a happy woman and a great mother. But on the show, the impact of this event is lessened by the fact that Helaena barely reacts to her son's actual murder, and that now, on this episode, she confesses that she feels as though she shouldn't even feel sad about his death either. It's a big change from the book that makes her seem like a colder and stranger character, rather than the warm and loving mother in Fire and Blood that experienced a tragedy that absolutely crushed her. On the show, it seems so underwhelming and meaningless, all the changes that the writers make from the events of the book. Even the Battle of the Burning Mill, the first battle of the entire war, doesn't even play out in the episode fully. We only see a glimpse of the carnage and slaughter that happens afterwards as thousands of dead bodies lay littered across the field, and the mill continues to burn to ash behind them, the only sign of what battle this truly is. This happens in 4 minutes in this episode, but in the book, it is a great battle with interesting characters and epic moments. For example, there's a character named Black Allie who fights in this battle as an archer, avenging her dead brother, Lord Samuel Blackwood, by shooting an arrow through the eye of his killer. It would have been a great scene and a great introduction to the character, especially since she will play such a vital role in the future of the story. However, she's not included in this episode, and neither is the epic nature of this moment fully fleshed out on the show. But I still think that the scene was fine, since we still get the idea of what happened and the significance of this battle for the war.
Sin begets sin, begets sin.
In the episode, we hear the lords of both sides considering it as the first domino to fall in the war. Some people want to use it as a justification to retaliate against the other side. Even AEGON says as much in a small council meeting with his lords, and Rhaenyra's counselors also urge her to take more action after this event. During this episode, we see how her counselors undermine her, wanting her to step away from command so that they could lead the war efforts themselves. This all aligns with the agenda that the show is trying to push, of women being excluded from the reins of power, while the men seek out war, bloodshed, and political authority.
Men would sooner put the realm to the torch than see a woman ascend the Iron Throne.
Alicent is basically ignored during Aegon's small council. Rhaenyra is undermined during her own, and even Mysaria has spoken of how men have never accepted her as a true player of the Game of Thrones. On the one hand, I can empathize with this plight, but I can also see the truth in what Daemon said about Rhaenyra, that she seeks political power and greatness as a monarch, and yet she lacks the will to act and the determination to truly grasp it. Unlike Cersei Lannister in the main series of books, Rhaenyra is weak and slow to make decisions in crucial political moments.
When you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die. There is no middle ground.
And this can also apply to Alicent Hightower as well, because she too fails to act during many moments throughout the story. For example, during the final scene, Alicent could have acted by calling her guards, arresting Rhaenyra, and possibly ending the war right then and there. However, she doesn't do that, and her love for Rhaenyra dictates her actions, or inactions in the case of this scenario. Instead of making the decision to end things right then and there, she lets the enemy go and fails to act, just like Rhaenys did in the previous season. Therefore, though I can understand the plight of a woman in this world wanting to be taken seriously as a real player in the Game of Thrones, I can also understand why the men of this world don't take them seriously at all, and instead view them as incompetent and unwilling to act. This is also a change from the book, since Alicent and Rhaenyra have more agency in Fire and Blood. The Maesters might have viewed them as more villainous as they probably were, but they certainly didn't view them as ineffective and weak. It seems like it's the writers that see Rhaenyra and even Alicent and many of the other women in the story as being weak and ineffective in the season. Also, the writers have changed some of the dynamics between some of the Green characters, making AEMOND feel resentful towards Aegon. Aegon is obviously a bully and a thorn in Aemond's life, but this is quite a change from the understanding that book readers had of their relationship from Fire and Blood. In the book, Aegon seems to love his brother, celebrating his murder of Lucerys Velaryon and commissioning the erection of statues in his honor after his death. Clearly, from these descriptions, Aegon's relationship with his brother Aemond was warm and loving. However, on the show, we see that Aegon is cruel towards Aemond, bullying him and teasing him when he spots him in the brothel. In the previous episode, Aegon wanted Aemond close by his side, a voice in his council, but now he doubts his intentions and humiliates him in public, possibly because of the whisperings of Larys in this episode.
That his grace was outwitted by his councillors and persuaded to fly to war with Sir Criston, so the Queen Alysanne may reign in his absence, with Prince Aemond at her side.
It's an interesting change from the book, but not one of the worst ones so far. In fact, it's likely to be interesting for what it could mean in the future. How will Aemond's feelings influence his counsel towards his brother in the future? I also think that certain moments of the episode were quite strong, such as the scene with Baela chasing Sir Criston through the forest and Daemon subduing Harrenhal. In the main series of books, Littlefinger says that every lord that holds Harrenhal is cursed and eventually dies, so maybe Daemon will eventually meet the same fate. He is certainly already cursed with visions of his past grievances and blights, so the misfortunes of Harrenhal are already taking a hold on him. And even Alice Rivers, an important character for the future of the story, says that he will die there. So certainly, Daemon's fate is sealed by holding this castle. Before I end the video, I have one more qualm that I want to discuss in detail, and that's the last scene between Alicent and Rhaenyra in the Sept. Though this scene was intense and dramatic, the more that I think about it, it's one of the main problems that I have about this show. On the one hand, I love the fact that Alicent finally knows about the Song of Ice and Fire, and I'm glad that she's finally forced to be in a position of taking agency. But on the other hand, I hate that this was the only reason that Alicent had to support Aegon's claim. As I said before, Alicent has been made a shadow of the great politician that she's characterized as in the books, because there are arguments for putting her son on the throne that have nothing to do with Viserys' dying wishes. In Fire and Blood, Alicent wants her son on the throne for two possible reasons, and two possible reasons only. Because she believes that it's the right thing to do under Andal and Valyrian customs, and because she might want to control the king and have indirect power through the throne. As alluded to before, Westeros is a patriarchal society where women don't have direct access to power, and this is something that Book Alicent understands fully and clearly. Therefore, she wants to wield power through the only way that a woman possibly could in this world, by influencing whoever sits the Iron Throne, her son, and by whispering in his side. But this was something that was taken away from the character on the show, and she was made into a fool who believed in the ramblings of a dying man, delirious on milk of the poppy. It makes her look like a fool who is honestly just stupid and delusional because there's multiple Aegons in the story. Why would she honestly think that Viserys was talking about her son after he had denied him for so many years? That was one of the reasons why I didn't like the scene, because it reminded me of that, and because, well, it was kinda stupid and nonsensical on its own. What did Rhaenyra expect would happen in this scenario? That she could convince Alicent to convince Aegon to forget about the murder of his son and step down from the Iron Throne in order to allow her to ascend it? Rhaenyra was stupid to even come to King's Landing in the first place, so I don't know what the writers were thinking in this scene. The more that I think about it, it's actually a very poorly done scene, and incredibly foolish on Rhaenyra's part. But what do you think? Let me know down below in the comments section, and if you liked this video, then click the thumbs up button and subscribe for future content. Thank you for watching. Peace.